Hello, my name is Margaret Carney, and I'm director of the International Museum of Dinnerware Design in Ann Arbor. Thank you for inviting me to give a presentation today. The International Museum of Dinnerware Design was established in 2012 with the knowledge that dining is a shared experience that can bridge together different communities. We are the only museum in the world devoted exclusively to celebrating dining. While conceptually an art museum, our food-centric celebration of dining has been a key feature from our inception. Our mission statement is as follows. The International Museum of Dinnerware Design collects, preserves, and celebrates masterpieces of the tabletop genre created by leading artists and designers worldwide. Through its collections, exhibitions, and educational programming, it provides a window on the varied cultural and societal attitudes toward food and dining, and commemorates the objects that exalt and venerate the dining experience. The International Museum of Dinnerware Design celebrates a significant aspect of our daily lives. The permanent collection features international dinnerware from ancient to futuristic, created from ceramics, glass, metal, plastic, lacquer, paper, fiber, wood, and more. Museums are known for their buildings and for their collections. Think of the Louvre. Think of the Everson Museum of Art with an IMP building. Or think of the iconic Guggenheim in New York City. Some have suggested we build a building that reflects the contents of our building, but we haven't yet been able to afford even that. So we have focused on educational programming and the collection. With more than 9,000 distinctive items in our permanent collection, I'd like to show you a few masterpieces from the collection. With our focus on good design, this includes work by well-known artists such as pop art artist Roy Lichtenstein, abstract artist Pablo Picasso, and the artist and designer Louis Comfort Tiffany, who is best known for his work with stained glass. The Roy Lichtenstein designed dinnerware is a breakfast set created in 1966 in a limited edition of 800 place settings produced by restaurant-ware maker Jackson China. The Picasso is probably an ashtray. The Tiffany Set is a finger bowl with underplate that you might have used when you dined with the Queen. Our collection includes masterpieces by the most prominent designers for industry, most from the mid-20th century. These include the designer Eva Zeisel, who created this first set for the Museum of Modern Art as a commission in the 1940s. It's simply called Museum. The second set of Eva's shown here is produced by Hall China in the 1950s, and it's known as Tomorrow's Classic. This shows a teapot of Eva's with an original plaster mold. It was donated by Eva's daughter and the factory that manufactured the ware. The designer Russell Wright designed some of the best-selling dinnerware designs ever from 1939 onward. These included his dinnerware services called American Modern, and these pictures are also part of that service. He was a great lover of nature, so somewhat ironically looking back, we see his plastic dishes called Flair, designed in the 1950s, with real Ming jade plant leaves embedded in the plastic, so no two plates, cups, saucers, and bowls are the same. His last dinnerware designs in the 60s were called Theme Formal and Theme Informal. Here is Informal, and here is Theme Formal. Two of the most unique and popular dinnerware lines created in the 1930s and the 1950s were designed by two of the Schreckengoss brothers. These mandarin, orange, tricorn, and streamliner Art Deco dishes were designed by Don Schreckengoss in the 1930s for Salem, China. In 1955, his brother Victor designed these dishes with tripod feet, freeform shape with a primitive pattern, also for Salem, China. I have one favorite dinnerware designer in Japan right now. His name is Shinichiro Ogata, and he designed this Wasara ware about 10 years ago. It is tree-free, single-use, biodegradable, disposable dinnerware, and so beautiful. I also have a favorite designer from the 1950s and 60s who designed wonderful plastic dinnerware in Melmac. His name was Kay Lemoyne, and he created this beautiful color flight pattern dinnerware. And here is his original design drawing on paper, part of our extensive collection of archival materials. I'm totally obsessed with his Asian-influenced ebonite line with bamboo handles and Chinese characters. Danish designer Arne Jacobsen created this beautiful coffee set in stainless steel for Stelton in the late 1960s. It's called Celinda. Another fabulous designer is Frederick Carter, who was head of design for Corning Incorporated for many years. He designed this Pyrex engraved teapot in the 1920s. My favorite Wedgwood design piece was designed by Josiah Wedgwood around 1800 out of caneware, and it's a game pie dish. During the time of flour shortages in England during the Napoleonic Wars, when no one could buy flour even if you were rich, this was designed to go on your table and make it look like you had a pastry, when really it's made of ceramic and has food inside because it's a casserole or a game pie dish. A great innovation. This English cube tea service was designed for use on the RMS Queen Mary Cunard steamship line. The pieces are made of bone china. We have quite a collection of restaurant ware at the International Museum of Dinnerware Design in Ann Arbor. This set was designed for Shenango, China in the 1950s, and it was used at the well-known seafood restaurant, The Well of the Sea, in the Hotel Sherman in Chicago until it closed around 1970. The restaurant was unique in that it was lit with black lights and decorated with abstract underwater scenes that glowed in the dark. In 1955, Karl Albach designed a striking flatware service titled Maestro for Ambos in Vienna. Now for some masterworks that are made by contemporary artists worldwide. First is a Swedish paper artist, Cecilia Levy's cup and saucer. Next, American ceramicist Kate Mowry, a centerpiece. And a David Gilhooly ceramic sculpture titled Frog Fruit Loops. Here is Allegheny Meadows with ceramic sculptural piece made of functional cups, all hand thrown. And the late John Glick's stoneware dinnerware commissioned by Joan Mondale in 1979 for her and Vice President Walter Mondale's house in Washington, D.C., Blair House. We have a strong interest in collecting prototype dinnerware designs at the International Museum of Dinnerware Design. Here is a unique prototype, in this case, the only one, a photosensitive glass plate designed in 1971 by Ted Rada for Corning Inc. Its transparency and translucency meant you never had to buy a new set of dishes. You just changed your placemats or tablecloth. It never went into production because it was not cost effective, not because it wasn't a genius idea, which it was. This prototype coffee kit was designed by Portuguese designer Joana Carvalho. It was meant to be produced in biodegradable materials. It came with a coffee bean, and when you were done with your small coffee, you simply planted the bean in the cup in the earth using the small spoon as a trowel. It has never gone into production. This example was produced in a non-biodegradable plastic at the company where my husband works. It's the only one we know of. American designer Peter Sanger designed this tea set with cups and a tray more than 30 years ago. You can lift the teapot without disturbing the chicks, cups. The tea stays warm and cozy. Great design. Captain Picard can be seen using it on Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's truly timeless dinnerware design. Artist, designer, and educator Paul Catula created this stunning ceramic place setting for one. IMoDD collects fine art that references dining, including the ceramic knife, fork, spoon sculpture by the late Bill Perry. Portuguese artist David Oliveira created this magnificent wire scribble sculpture in our collection. Dirk Stochke created this delicious looking sculpture in 2020. While we have many Chinese paper takeout boxes in our collection, we just acquired this recent pair of ceramic sculptures created by artist Beth Lowe. Canadian artist Leopold Foulem created this conceptual sculpture, Blue Willow Teapot. One of our first acquisitions in 2012 was the purchase of this 4-foot by 5-foot 4-inch archival photograph by installation artist and photographer Sandy Skoglund titled The Cocktail Party from 1992. Our archives include hundreds of original print advertisements from journals and newspapers, as well as brochures and pamphlets. While we have quite a number of international dinnerware items from China, Japan, India, Europe, and elsewhere, here are just 3 of my favorite Chinese examples. The first is a translucent porcelain celadon bowl from the Chinese Sung Dynasty, 960 to 1279, purchased as a second from a museum in Jingdezhen in the 1990s. The second is an archaeologically recovered Chinese Sung Dynasty Tsidjaware ewer from Julu, an area that was inundated by a flood of the Yellow River in 1108 and unearthed more than 800 years later when wells were being dug in the ancient buried marketplace during a drought. The area is now considered China's Pompeii. The third is a Chinese Tamaku tea bowl, also dating from the Sung Dynasty, given to me by Katie Randall, widow of Alfred ceramicist Ted Randall. Of course, our collections have some oddities too. The fork, as McDonald's notes, a uselessly useful item, was introduced to the public in a test market of Lancaster, Pennsylvania for about 1 day in 2017. We asked a friend to stand in line there and acquire one for IMoDD. It's to be used by inserting French fries in the fork and sopping up the sauce oozing from one of their new signature crafted sandwiches. Next is an ashtray where one stubs out one cigarette in a ceramic baby foot while in the waiting room at the pediatrician's office. I imagine it could go on the breakfast table as well. Manufactured for Similac, the baby formula manufacturer, with preventive pediatric advice on the base. The ceramic saucerette rests on the edge of your cup saucer, so your smoke is as close to your hot beverage as possible. So attractive, too. Who doesn't remember the original TV dinners from the 1960s? We couldn't wait for our parents to go out to eat so we could enjoy one of these modern miracles in convenience dining. Made of sturdy restaurant ware, TEPCO in California manufactured hundreds, if not thousands, of patterns of dishes. A favorite among oddities is the large meat platter, ironically adorned with a covered wagon and labeled Donner Party 1846, a meat platter. We have several lunchboxes celebrating celebrities: Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, Snoopy, and then this one shaped like a loaf of sliced bread. Sliced bread was first available beginning in 1928, so this Trompe l'oeil kind of pop artish lunchbox was probably deemed terribly clever back in 1968 when Aladdin created it. I'm still fond of it. These ceramic turkey-headed salt and pepper shakers are perfect for a family Thanksgiving. They were created from molds of actual dead turkeys by artist Guy Michael Davis. While not sculpted from Ronald Reagan's actual head, this caricature teapot was a commission manufactured by Hall China in East Liverpool, Ohio, around 1983. Frederick Carter designed Fiesta ware for the Homer Laughlin China Company in 1936. This one radioactive orange-red color was only available between 1936 and 1942, when this glaze color was discontinued because the radioactive glaze ingredient uranium was needed for the atom bomb. And here is some glassware with similar properties. The German porcelain manufacturer Rosenthal created these beautiful plates and accessory pieces to tell the story of Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. The dinnerware is sculptural with the libretto for the opera written in gold script on the back of each piece. This is in sharp contrast to this 20th century English cup and saucer intended to be used for fortune telling. One of the most natural or basic pieces of dinnerware we have in the collection are commercially marketed bowls made of real coconuts. Reminds one of Gilligan's Island. Then how about some presidential dinnerware that wasn't manufactured for use by a president, but rather as a souvenir? And finally, a large heavy teapot in the form of Sherlock Holmes, designed by Don Schreckengoss for Hall China in 1987. A quick look at several of our special exhibitions since 2013 shows a the fun of popping up in spaces belonging to other organizations such as the Ladies Literary Club in Ypsilanti, SOFA Chicago at Navy Pier, Zingerman's Coffee and Zing Train, and the Washtenaw County Historical Society's Museum on Main Street, among others. These are glimpses of our first exhibition, Unforgettable Dinnerware, in 2013 at the Ladies Literary Club in Ypsilanti. SOFA Chicago 2013 at Navy Pier. SOFA stands for Sculptural Objects Functional Art. Our exhibition was called Whetting Your Appetite. 34,000 visitors potentially saw our show as part of this international art exposition in just 3.5 days. Our exhibitions at Zingerman's Coffee and Zing Train lasted for several months, and we estimated 25,000 people may have looked at our exhibitions while sipping tea and or taking a seminar. We exhibited Teaware by Warren Mackenzie, a teeny tiny miniature tea set shown on a Hostess cupcake for relative size, Art Nouveau hand-decorated tea set, a pop-up book illustrating Alice's adventures in Wonderland, Glidden pottery from Alfred, New York, and a Hall China automobile-shaped teapot in Chinese red, for example. Back at the Ladies Literary Club, I'm skipping over a few exhibits here and there, but this is in 2014, our first national and invitational juried exhibition. Contemporary artists created dinnerware for babies in high chairs. So we displayed much of it on high chairs. Probably the only time an exhibition like this has ever happened, focusing on contemporary and historic babyware. Contemporary artists included Linda Sikora, who teaches at Alfred, Janet DeBooze from Australia, the late Val Cushing, who taught at Alfred, 1920s babyware from Czechoslovakia, and note that Humpty Dumpty is wearing fishnet stockings and smoking, plastic chow-chow trains from the 1950s, and ceramic clown-shaped baby food warmers before microwave ovens were invented. Cake was our second national invitational and juried exhibition held in 2016 at the local history museum. Several members of the Culinary Historians of Ann Arbor provided the cake refreshments. Some may have come just for the cake and not the artwork. And a few examples of artwork from the artists in the exhibition. Even Legos. Dining Mid-Century was one of our 2017 exhibitions at the Stone Chalet event space in Ann Arbor. It was only on view for a long weekend, but had a wide audience appeal, received a lot of social media attention, and included a live jazz band performance. Here are some glimpses from that memorable exhibition. Barware opened in Ann Arbor in 2017 at Morgan and York with a wine tasting event. Here are some of the diverse barware objects that were included and some of our visitors. The outstanding favorite was the vintage 1941 bar radio, a Bakelite radio with a built-in bar. We were also back in Chicago in the fall for SOFA Chicago 2017 at Navy Pier with our Timeless Dinnerware Design exhibition. Here is a selection of artwork in detail. One of our 2018 exhibitions, Dining In, Dining Out, presented dining vignettes for visitors, such as tea on a deck chair on the Queen Mary, Glidden pottery on vintage Haywood Wakefield dining set, restaurant dining at the Well of the Sea restaurant in Chicago, streamlined refrigerator ware in a vintage refrigerator, hippy dippy Peter Mac Shaggy setting, a child's toy Russell Wright set, which you'll see right now after the Eva Zeisel decanter, a diner scenario with TEPCO Confucius ware. And here's another view of the tea on a deck chair on the Queen Mary. And don't forget dining on a streamliner train. My favorite exhibition so far was Unapologetic Dinnerware, a brief history of disposable dinnerware, presented in 2018 at Concordia University in Ann Arbor. It was and is a timely look at the topic. And here's a few snapshots of the teaware and other disposable items. Butter was our third national invitational and juried exhibition held in 2019 at the Museum on Main Street in Ann Arbor. You can tell from these images, everyone had a lot of fun with this topic, including the artists. Here's one Trompe l'oeil take on butter. And here is the first prize winner, Julia Harvey's piece called Land O' Liars instead of Land O' Lakes. And a few other great pieces from that show. SOFA Chicago 2019 with dinnerware plus design plus decoration. Again, we had around 35,000 visitors in 3.5 days. Here's a few peeks at that installation and some close-ups of work that was included, including this Art Deco Royal Rochester set, Piero Fornasetti, more Eva Zeisel teapots than you can imagine. And then we're coming up soon to our breakfast exhibition in April 2021. It's our 4th National Invitational and Juried exhibition. And here's a little sneak preview of invited and juried work. After all, it's always breakfast sometime, somewhere. Linda Sikora, Diana Pancioli, Ann Tubbs, Nancy Bulkley, and Will McCombs. We will have a happening during the virtual opening on April 10th when we open a vintage 1960s individual serving size box of Rice Krispies that has a paper lining so it could have been used as a cereal bowl. And we'll see if the Rice Krispies still go snap, crackle, pop. It will be recorded for posterity and available at our website. I hope someday I can invite you over for tea and to see our office and parts of the collection that are stored there. In-person visits are so much fun, but this is what you'd see if you came today. I fantasize that when we have our own dedicated museum building that we can organize a world-class exhibition that borrows dinnerware-related paintings, sculptures, ceramics, and more from other leading institutions. Here's what might be included in those loaned works of art. Paintings by Edward Hopper, Grant Wood, Renoir, Leger, Bruegel, Tanner, Monet, Manet, and Norman Rockwell. Sculptures that might be included would include my favorite Picasso, Judy Chicago's installation, a couple of Dwayne Hansen's sculptures, Dirk Stotchke, side view, close-up, and back view, Klaus Oldenburg, Beth Lipman, the work of Cindy Sherman, Neon, Palisade, perhaps an anonymous potter from Iran in the 10th century, a Meissen piece, Brancusi, of course, Merritt Oppenheim, Salvador Dali, and maybe even some 16th century knives engraved with musical scores. And finally, how do we acquire things? Large gifts like the 362 pieces of California designed ceramics from the estate of Bill Stern, who founded the Museum of California Design in Los Angeles. And this was a great gift. Or through bequests, such as pieces that were donated by Fong Chao to me. Fong Chao was curator of Asian art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art for 25 years. It could be inherited. In fact, these are my parents' monogram wedding china from their 1939 wedding in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Perhaps Amnesty, that program worked at the Waldorf Astoria in 2012, where they offered for people to return things they had inadvertently taken home with them from their stay, no questions asked. And finally, I'm going to end with a story of thievery. Next time you're in Paris and strolling the Champs-Élysées, note a Chinese restaurant called Dragon's Élysée. They have high prices, so-so cuisine, and koi fish swimming in the floors beneath your dining table. It's really magnificent and worth the price. I should mention that the International Museum of Dinnerware Design also collects napkins. And now we have a cloth napkin from that memorable evening. Thanks to this pilfered napkin, our collection storage is now full. Thank you for your attention today. There are 3 things you could do today to help us achieve our goal. Number 1, become a member. Number 2, tell your friends about the museum. And finally, number 3, help us come up with a plan for finding a permanent location for the museum.